Howdy, y'all. We are trying to trudge through, and we have switched over to the discussion board so that we might actually have an opportunity to give feedback and not be overwhelmed by all the errors happening. And that is quite doable on the discussion board, which is not exhibiting the same problem. So we're going to get through this. Hopefully you're going through the chapters and we'll finish up through chapter 9 by the end of this week. Do remember, however, that the schedule for the quizzes is really just a guideline, and I'm not checking to see what date you finished getting your A by. It's just you need to have all the chapters done and take the final by the time, by the end of week 6. So when we have 1 week of class left, you won't be doing tests during that time. Okay, so here we are in discussion 3. And what we're gonna do is, or I guess you finished wiki 3 and we're on 4. Now, this is my view, but as we start to work on this, I wanted to just give you a little overview. We're looking at the beginning of descriptive statistics and a little introduction to inferential statistics. The difference between descriptive and inferential is descriptive does not try to guess anything. It only reports what's there. In other words, describe. So you're describing what's going on. Inferential tries to use the data collected to make educated guesses about the future, about what's going to happen next, about what it's typically like, and make big generalizations. So that is the main difference. And on this post, we're going to look at your questions. And at this point, you've listed some questions. You have listed a bunch of variables that are related and you think might affect the outcome. And we are on another lesson, we're actually going to look at how do you control for those things, and if you can't control them, then you better include them in your data collection and analysis. So, but we'll talk about how to deal with all of those. But you may have seen something that you wanted to include in your questions. So when you start this post, which requires you to restate your quantitative research questions, you can leave them the way they are last time you wrote them, or you can tweak them based on the way things are going and what you think is more important and what things you think you may need to add in to make it important and interesting. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you're going to identify the population and the samples. Now, the population is when you get done with the research, you want to make a statement about all teachers in Tennessee, or do you want to talk about all mathematics teachers across the nation, or do you want to make a statement about all special needs students or some special group of special needs students? Do you want to keep that in your district as the population? That's usually not the thing with quantitative research. We're trying to generalize to a broad population. So it's not who you're studying, it's who you're studying represents. because you get your small sample that you actually collect data from. And so it may be a set of schools nearby, and I'll take you through one example on this in just a second. But then you are going to look at how you measure your dependent variables and independent variables. And then you're going to brainstorm a list of demographic info, which is descriptive statistics, that you will need to understand about your sample in order to really understand who you can generalize it to. To give you a more concrete example, here is my question, which is, does an increase in collegial interaction among high school mathematics teachers lead to increased student achievement scores on the Tennessee end of course test? Okay, there's my question. The independent variable is the collegial interaction. The dependent variable is the scores on the end of course test. So, population. I want to be able to make a statement about all high school mathematics teachers and the outcomes for their students across the state of Tennessee. Now, I'm not going to study all that. That's too many people to study, so that's why you have this idea of a sample. Now, I'm going to do a stratified sampling of and include at least 100 teachers from rural, urban, and suburban schools of various sizes, so that I can say that my sample reflects the larger population, that it's representative, it's not special, it's not some unique niche within that it truly does encompass something that looks a lot like the broad population. Okay, measurement. How am I going to measure these things? Well, how do you measure collegiality? Well, the Taylor-Angell collegiality scales. That's a little project I worked on in the past. And so there's a way that asks questions and quantifies the kind of interaction, and is the interaction, or to what extent is that collegial? So we could put a number on collegiality, and that's important that your measurement be valid and reliable. And Angel did most of the work on that part. So I've got a way to measure the first thing. Now, my independent variable, the end of course tests, of course, are already quantitative, and they're accessible because it's a really public record as long as you're not looking at individual students. So that does the question, it does the population, the sample, the measurements of the variables, demographics that I will need to inform my study with. When I do the sample, I'm going to have to know about all the school size, the school locale. Is it urban, rural, or suburban? Is it diverse in terms of SES, gender, and race? We don't come to a conclusion, we just report the data, and we want that to be able to be comparable in its mix to the state of Tennessee, because that's where I want to generalize to. Now, the other demographics is the teachers. Is this a special group, or do they really represent the teachers, the high school math teachers across the USA? So, or excuse me, across Tennessee. So I'm going to include diversity of the teachers. The first part was the diversity of the students. This part is the diversity among the teachers, including education level, like bachelor's, master's, EDS, doctoral. And how long have they been teaching? These are just some of the normal variables collected. Might add how many years they've been at that school as opposed to just their experience level, because that will affect the collegiality. All right, so that's your main part of your assignment. I've also included a video that will talk a little bit more in depth about inferential statistics. And that's just an introduction, because as we look at statistical tests, you're going to have to understand the basic concepts underlying inferential. How do we make educated guesses about what's going to happen? So there you go. All right, I will see you online. I will probably set up a time to talk to you soon. So look forward to that, and send me questions when you need them answered, and we will work on it and be glitch free for a while. All right, have a blessed day. And I will stop sharing, and then I will stop.